Nia never meant to start a fight. She was just cleaning the living room when she saw Kwame's phone buzzing on the couch. Out of habit, she picked it up to bring it to him. That one small action changed everything. As soon as Kwame saw the phone in her hand, his eyes turned cold. "Why are you touching my phone?" he shouted, storming over. Nia froze, confused. "I was just handing it to you," she said softly. But he didn't listen. He snatched the phone, his face full of rage. "You're spying on me," he yelled. Before she could explain, before she could even move, he grabbed her arm and twisted it hard, so hard she heard a sickening crack. Pain shot through her body. She fell to the floor, crying out in shock. Kwame stood over her, breathing heavy, not saying a word. Nia lay there, holding her arm, trying to understand how someone who once said he loved her could hurt her like that. The room was silent now, except for her quiet sobs. Kwame didn't say sorry. He didn't even help her up. Instead, he walked away like nothing happened. That day, something inside Nia broke, not just her bone, but her trust, her safety, her sense of love. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. Not yet. But in that silence, something started to grow, a deep, burning fire that one day would turn everything upside down. Nia didn't tell anyone what happened. Not the neighbors, not her sister, not even the doctor. When she went to the hospital, she said she slipped on the stairs. The nurse gave her a strange look but didn't push. Kwame stood beside her, smiling politely, acting like the perfect boyfriend. He told the nurse he was worried, that he hated seeing Nia in pain. When they got home, he brought her soup and even tucked her in bed. But his eyes never looked soft. They looked sharp, like they were always watching. Nia stayed quiet. It felt safer that way. She told herself it was just one moment, just one mistake. Maybe he was stressed. Maybe she did grab the phone too fast. She kept repeating excuses in her head, like a broken record. Every time the truth tried to come out, she swallowed it back down. But silence is heavy. It doesn't just go away. It sits in your chest like a stone. Days passed, then weeks. Kwame went back to normal, laughing with friends, working late, being charming to everyone else. But Nia saw behind the smile. She saw the lies, the secrets, the coldness in his eyes when no one was looking. And something inside her started to shift. The pain in her arm healed slowly, but the anger in her heart grew stronger every day. She started noticing more, the way he locked his phone the second she walked in, the way he talked down to her in front of others, the way he controlled what she wore, where she went, who she talked to. It wasn't love. It never was. Nia didn't scream or cry anymore. Instead, she watched. She listened. She waited. She smiled when he smiled. She nodded when he spoke. She played the part he wanted her to play. But inside, she was changing. That silence she once thought would protect her had become something else. It was no longer fear, it was fuel. Every fake smile, every lie, every bruise on her soul added to the fire burning inside her. She didn't know exactly what she would do yet, but she knew this, she wouldn't stay silent forever. One day, he would hear her voice. And when he did, it wouldn't be soft. It would be loud. It would be strong. It would be the sound of everything he tried to break rising back up to destroy him. For now, silence was still safer. But not for long. Nia told him she forgave him. She smiled, nodded, and said, "It's okay." She acted like everything was back to normal. Kwame believed her. That was his first mistake. He thought she was weak, too scared to leave, too broken to fight back. But inside, Nia had changed. Her heart was no longer soft for him. It was cold, sharp, and ready. She didn't cry anymore. She didn't argue. She just watched. Every move he made, every word he said, she paid attention. She started learning who he really was. And it wasn't pretty. She stayed close, not out of love, but out of strategy. If she wanted to take him down, she had to be smart. She began collecting little pieces of the truth. Late at night, when he was asleep, she checked his drawers, his files, his emails. She found fake documents, secret bank accounts, photos, and messages that weren't meant for her. She took pictures of everything and sent them to a secret email only she had access to. Her hands would shake sometimes, but she kept going. She knew this was bigger than revenge. It was about freedom. Kwame continued living like a king. He thought he was untouchable. He ran shady businesses, cheated on Nia, lied to everyone around him. And she let him. She let him think she was still under his control. She played the perfect partner. Cooked for him. Laughed at his jokes. Sat quietly beside him at parties. But behind every kind gesture was a plan. Every moment with him was another step closer to exposing the truth. Sometimes, Nia wanted to scream. Sometimes, the pain of pretending was too much. But she held it in. She reminded herself why she was doing this, not just for her, but for every woman who was told to stay silent, to forgive, to not make a scene. Kwame had taken her voice once. He had taken her trust, her safety, even her body. But now, she was taking everything back, piece by piece. She recorded his phone calls when he argued with business partners. She saved screenshots of messages where he admitted to shady deals. She followed him once, quietly, when he said he had a late meeting. What she found was another lie, and she got it all on camera. She had a folder full of proof now. She didn't know exactly what day she'd use it, but she knew the time was coming. She could feel it. And Kwame? He had no idea. He slept peacefully at night, not knowing the woman lying next to him was slowly building the end of his empire. He thought he had control. But the truth was, Nia had already taken it back. She was no longer the broken woman on the floor. She was the quiet storm-gathering force right beside him. And soon, he'd see what it feels like when the one you hurt the most becomes the one who destroys you. Nia didn't need to run. She didn't need to scream. She just needed to watch, wait, and be ready. And she was. The day started like any other. Kwame left early, wearing his sharp suit, giving Nia a quick kiss on the cheek like always. He was smiling, full of confidence, thinking he had everything under control. He had no idea what was waiting for him. Nia stood by the window and watched him drive off. Her heart was calm. Her hands didn't shake this time. She had already made up her mind. Today was the day. She opened her laptop, signed into the secret email account, and pulled up the folder she had built quietly for months. Bank records, fake invoices, photos of secret meetings, voice recordings of threats and deals, everything was there, packed and labeled, clear as daylight. She took a deep breath and wrote just one line: "This man is not who he claims to be." No name, no goodbye. Attached the folder. Clicked send. Just like that, it was out of her hands, gone to the government office that investigated financial crimes. It was over. Or at least, the beginning of the end. She sat still for a moment. No tears. No smile. Just silence. A deep silence that felt like peace. Meanwhile, Kwame walked into his office, not knowing that the walls were about to close in. He checked his phone, joked with his assistant, and prepared for his meetings. He didn't notice the shift. Not yet. But later that afternoon, he got a call, and his face changed. They were asking questions. Serious ones. About bank accounts he thought no one knew about. About businesses he claimed didn't exist. His hands began to sweat. His voice trembled, just a little. For the first time, he didn't know what to say. Nia stayed home that day, calm, quiet. She didn't need to run or hide. She had stayed in the dark long enough. Now, everything was out in the open. She didn't need credit. She didn't need revenge with fire and screaming. One quiet message was enough. One truth set free. And it hit him harder than anything else could. Calls came one after another. His lawyers, his accountant, his business partners, all in panic. People started pulling away. Some of them knew. Some of them had doubts for a while but were too scared to ask. Now, they had the proof. It was over. Slowly, like a crack in glass, his empire began to fall apart. Not loudly. Not all at once. But it was happening. And Kwame? He was no longer untouchable. He was no longer powerful. He was exposed. Nia sat on her couch that evening and looked at the sunset. She felt lighter, like a weight had finally been lifted. For so long, she had been living in fear, pretending, planning, waiting. But now, she had done it. She didn't shout. She didn't beg. She used the truth, and it was more powerful than anything else. One message. That's all it took. She didn't destroy him with her hands. She destroyed him with his own secrets. And that was just the beginning. Kwame was in the middle of a meeting, standing at the front of the boardroom with a confident smile on his face. He was wearing his favorite suit, the one he always wore when he wanted to impress. Everyone in the room listened carefully as he spoke about a big project that would bring in millions. People nodded, some even clapped. He looked powerful, like nothing could touch him. That's how he liked it, being the man in charge, the one people feared, the one no one dared to question. But while he talked about the future, something else was already on its way, something that would end it all. The glass doors of the boardroom opened slowly. At first, no one paid attention. Then came the sound of footsteps, heavy, steady, serious. 4 police officers stepped into the room. They weren't smiling. They weren't confused. They knew exactly who they were looking for. One officer stepped forward and said clearly, "Kwame Mensah, you are under arrest." The room went silent. A few people gasped. Someone dropped a pen. Kwame blinked, his smile fading instantly. "What?" he said, laughing nervously, trying to play it off. "There must be a mistake." But it wasn't a mistake. The officers stepped closer. One read him his rights while the others pulled out handcuffs. Kwame tried to argue, tried to talk, but his voice cracked. No one stood up to help him. No one said a word. They just watched, shocked, confused, some even recording the moment on their phones. The same people who cheered for him now stared at him like they didn't even know who he was. As they turned him around and cuffed his wrists, Kwame's eyes darted across the room, looking for something, someone, maybe a way out. But there was none. His face turned pale. His voice was gone. The man who once controlled everything had lost all control. The suit, the money, the charm, none of it mattered now. He was being taken out in front of everyone, exposed and humiliated. Outside the building, reporters were already waiting. Microphones pushed toward his face. Cameras flashed. Questions flew from every direction. Did you steal company funds? Are the charges true? What about your employees? He didn't answer. His head was down. His hands were cuffed. The man who once walked with pride now looked small, weak, broken. At home, Nia sat in silence, watching the live news on her screen. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just watched. This was the moment she knew would come, the moment the truth finally caught up to him. The world was seeing who he really was. Not the charming businessman. Not the perfect man in the suit. But the liar. The thief. The abuser. Kwame always thought he was above the law. Untouchable. Too smart to get caught. But now, with cold metal around his wrists and the world watching, he realized the truth. He was never untouchable. He just hadn't been touched yet. The courtroom was full. Every seat was taken. Reporters, former business partners, even old friends of Kwame were there. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but people still waited outside with their phones, ready to share the news the moment it dropped. Kwame sat at the defense table, wearing a dark suit and trying to look calm. But his eyes couldn't hide it, the panic, the fear, the shame. His hands were clenched. His jaw was tight. He had spent years building a perfect image, and now it was slipping away, piece by piece. Then Nia walked in. Quietly, gracefully, she took her seat near the front. She wasn't there for revenge. She was there for truth. She had waited a long time for this moment. The silence in the room felt heavy as the judge asked everyone to rise. And then the trial began. For a while it was just legal talk, paperwork, dates, business terms. Kwame tried to act confident, answering questions, faking his charm. But then the judge looked at the evidence list and gave a small nod. The court clerk stood up and said, "We will now play the submitted audio recordings." The room went still. Suddenly, Kwame's voice filled the courtroom. Loud. Angry. Cold. "Touch my phone again, and I'll break more than your arm," the voice said. People gasped. Nia kept her eyes forward. Another clip played. "No one will believe you. You're nothing without me." His voice was filled with power, with control, with cruelty. The mask was off now. There was no hiding. Everyone was hearing the man behind the smile. Whispers spread through the room. People shook their heads, some in disbelief, some in disgust. The lawyers on Kwame's side looked down. Even the judge's face changed. The evidence was clear. This wasn't just a business case anymore. It was a case of abuse, of lies, of manipulation. Then Nia stood up. The judge allowed her to speak. Her voice was soft at first, but steady. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply told the truth. How she stayed quiet out of fear. How he controlled every part of her life. How he hurt her, not just once, but again and again. How she smiled in public while hiding bruises in private. And how, finally, she found the strength to fight back. Every word she spoke was like a light breaking through darkness. The courtroom was silent, fully focused on her. Even Kwame didn't look up. He just sat there, exposed, powerless. When Nia finished, she sat down, her head held high. Her voice had done what no money or lawyer could undo. It showed the world who Kwame really was. Not the man on magazine covers. Not the smooth speaker in business meetings. But the man who thought he could silence her forever. That day in court, she didn't just give testimony. She gave truth a voice. And that voice broke everything he had built on lies. Nia stood by the window of her new office, looking out at the city that once felt like a cage. The nameplate on her desk now read, CEO, Nia Mensa. The same company Kwame used to rule with fear was now hers. Not just the title, the respect, the decisions, the power, all belonged to her. And she didn't get here by begging or staying quiet. She fought for every inch of her freedom. The man who once told her she was nothing without him was now gone. His name, his face, his legacy, erased from every part of the company he built through lies. She changed everything. New leadership. New rules. A safer space for everyone who worked there. People smiled more. They no longer whispered in fear when walking through the halls. Nia had turned a place of silence into a place of strength. And she didn't just rebuild a business, she rebuilt herself. For years, Kwame had broken her spirit, her peace, and even her body. But now, he was the one forgotten. His name was no longer on the building. His photo removed from every wall. He had power once, but Nia had the truth, and truth lasts longer than fear. Every time she walked into a room, she didn't carry pain, she carried proof that healing is power. That rising is possible. She didn't just survive him. She ended him, not with violence, but with courage. He broke her body, but she broke his name. And in the end, she won.